Okay, today is June 6, 2018. This is Sanah Mills, and I'm interviewing Troy Mills. We are currently at home, and the time is 8:45 p.m. Okay. Where were you born?
I was born in Kingston, Jamaica.
Okay. When were you born?
I was born in the year 1979.
Do you remember what you wanted to be when you were younger? If so, why?
Well, when I was younger, I thought about being an engineer, and at the time, there was one individual named Edward Gatson. He was an engineer. At least he studied engineering when he was an undergrad, and he encouraged me to pursue engineering.
Okay. Did you like school better in Jamaica or America? Why?
Well, I liked both. I enjoyed my schooling in Jamaica, and I also enjoyed my schooling here in the U.S. One distinction about my schooling here in the U.S. was that in Jamaica, we don't deal with racial problems or we don't have to navigate racial concerns or situation in school. Whereas when I was here in the U.S., because of the racial concerns or racial situation that arise, oftentimes I felt like I needed to prove myself to fellow classmates who were who were white. So that was the only thing that I didn't like about schooling here. In Jamaica, if you studied hard and you demonstrated that you could master the subject matter and do well, people respected you for that. Whereas here, a lot of times, if I worked in groups, the assumption was because I'm of African descent, that I wasn't smart or I wasn't going to have much to contribute. And so that was one thing that I didn't like about the schooling here. But beyond that, I enjoyed both schooling in Jamaica and the schooling here.
Okay. Does your answer change educational-wise? Meaning, was education better here or in better Jamaica?
I think both have their strengths and setbacks. In Jamaica, it wasn't, when I was growing up there anyways, it wasn't uncommon that corporal punishment was used to motivate kids to learn, and whereas here, if a student chooses not to learn or to participate in class, there is not much that can be done other than, talking to the parents, and if the parents can't control the kids, then it's almost like kids can fall through the cracks. Whereas in Jamaica, you can get a beating from your teacher if you're not paying attention in class, if you're not motivated. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but I think schooling in Jamaica is great, and schooling here in the U.S. is also great.
Okay. Why did your family join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
So we joined we had just moved from one parish to another, and we've always been active in church, and we moved to a new neighborhood, a new community, a new state or parish, and we didn't know anyone, and we didn't know where to go necessarily and find a church. And it was just perfect timing where we're in this state of uncertainty, and we had two missionaries who came to our home and invited us to church. So that was part of our motivation for joining the church. It just so happened that the missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints came to our door, was among the first to come to our door and say, come to church with us. But beyond that, we fell in love with the community that was of members that was in Jamaica, and we felt welcomed and felt like we belonged there. So, among other things.
What made you study religious studies?
That's a great question. So, I've always been interested in religion, and because religion has always been a big part of my life. And as I became older, and as I became more familiar with American social culture that's based on racism, I saw the same thing in the church as I saw in American society. And so that was pretty disappointing for me, but at the same time it sparked my curiosity to know or to try to understand, why is it that a church that preach and teach the importance of loving all people of no matter their race, ethnicity, or culture, why did this history exist in the church? So that was a motivation for me to try to unpack that and try to understand that. And beyond that, I just enjoy studying religion because it helps me to see the world in a way that helps me to understand what motivates people to make the decisions that they make. Certain people vote politically a certain way because of their religious beliefs. Certain people choose to get medical care or not get medical care because of their beliefs. Certain people live their lifestyle based on their beliefs. So whether you drink alcohol or you smoke or don't drink, all of those things are fascinating to me to know what motivates human action. And I think religion plays a big part in who we are and how we see the world.
Okay. Why did you decide to be a graduate student?
Well, it was motivated by a desire. I've always been a curious individual, and learning was always something that fascinated me. And as an undergrad, I studied a lot of things that I wasn't necessarily interested in. And when I saw the opportunities that existed for graduate studies where you could study specific things that you were interested in or that I was interested in, that was a motivation. And also just thinking strategically as well, career-wise, I knew that the more education I had as an individual, the better it would be for me to find employment and find a career or job that I would enjoy.
Okay. Did you want to move to America? Why?
Well, I came here when I was 13. And in many ways, I didn't necessarily have a choice because I was still under the guidance of my parents. And so, but beyond that, I was excited to come to America as a 13-year-old boy. I think just because leaving or visiting any major countries that the world is familiar with, say for instance London or England or China, any place that's quite popular among global or world culture, people are usually excited to visit, and I don't think America is any different, so I was excited to come here and live.
Okay. When you arrived in America, how did that make you feel? How did you feel when you arrived?
How did I feel?
Yeah.
It was a culture shock. I mean, I came in the middle at the start of winter, and so obviously coming from a really warm climate to a cold, freezing climate was a big difference. And as I said, adjusting to the social order that existed in America that was based on race, that took me a while and took my family a while to understand that and understand how significant that was in how we were experiencing America. A lot of times, things that happened we couldn't make sense of or understand why things were happening, but over time we understood that our race was a big issue here in this society, so we had to learn very quickly how to navigate those situations. And then beyond that, I left all my friends back in Jamaica, so that was a pretty hard thing. And then I had to make new friends, and moving to not only a new community but a new country with new culture and social order, was pretty hard to adjust to. For instance, growing up in Jamaica, most of my days, if I wasn't in school or at church, and I was at home, was spent outside hanging out with my friends. And coming here to America in the middle of winter, most of my time was spent indoors watching TV or playing video games or just being bored. So that was a hard thing to go through, but over time I adjusted and learned how to deal with the change in season and how to keep myself active and busy.
Okay. What made your family move to America?
Well, I think my parents felt my brothers and my sister and I would have more opportunity education-wise, career-wise as well. So that was a big motivation. Because in Jamaica, unless you are at the top of your class when you graduate from high school or